Okay. Welcome to the, let's see, the July 17th? 16th. 2024 meeting of the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we can actually begin the meeting tonight, we have new members and we need to conduct some organizational business before we can get started. I would ask for unanimous consent of the assembled commissioners for the appointment of Joe Hammer as temporary chair pending the election of permanent officers of the zoning commission for the fiscal year 2025, which began essentially on July 1st.
I'll second that. That's a motion, right? On your part?
I'd make that as a motion for unanimous consent for that appointment.
Yeah, and I'll second.
Shall we take a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any negative? This requires unanimous consent. Hearing no dissent, by unanimous consent, the appointment of Joe is recognized as our temporary chairman pending the election of officers for this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. As Commissioner Deane mentioned, the first order of business is going to be roll call and seating of alternates, and we have some new members here. So I will call the roll. Chris Brecklin, who's to my right. Chris is a new regular member of the commission. Tom Deane is here. It's a combination roll call introduction of new people. David Drake. Here. Dave Edwards. Here. Tracy Gianfrido. Here. And Tracy, welcome. Along with Chris, you're also a new member starting with us tonight. Joe Hammer here. Tony Homicki is not here this evening. Jim Hughes, not here this evening. Peter Lambruni.
I'm here.
Joseph Ercolani.
Here.
And Paul Thompson.
Here.
So let me just do the math here on how many people we have. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we have a total of 9, including our 2 alternates. So basically everyone is able to participate on all of the matters we have before us tonight. For the organizational meeting, I think there's a sub-agenda in the agenda package on page 2. The first order of business is election of officers, and the first position to be addressed is the nomination and election of chairman. And I will open it up to nominations.
I would like to nominate Joe Hammer as
Second.
chairman.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other nominations? If not, on the pending motion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Look forward to working with all of you.
So now you're official.
Yes. Back again. It's been quite a long time. Nomination and election of vice chairman, and I would like to nominate Peter Lambruni. Is there a second? Second by, just for the minutes, by Paul. Okay. Any other nominations? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Congratulations, Peter.
Thank you.
And finally, nomination and election of clerk. Open to nominations.
I'd like to,
Proceed.
thank you. I would like to nominate Tony Homicki as clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a nomination and a second. Any other nominations? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Tony Homicki is now our clerk. Moving on to the authorization of signatures. Would someone move to approve the authorization of Frederick J. Presley, our town manager, to sign notices of the commission?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Approved. Next, authorization of Derek Greger, town engineer, to sign notices of the commission. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. 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 Ex officio members, Frederick J. Presley, town manager, as ex officio member. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is approved as well. Next is appointment to Capital Region Council of Governments, nomination and election of a representative and an alternate to the Regional Planning Commission of CROG. And I know I think either Tom or Peter possibly are you currently doing this, or have you in the past, either of them?
No on both counts.
Okay.
No, I have not. I'm on
Do you know who are-
EDIC, but, no, I'm not.
And do you know, Fred, who our current rep and alternate are, or does anybody else happen to know that? Maybe Rich was one of them?
Rich was one of them, yes.
Okay, so basically, I think it's a regional council of governments. Among the things they do is they hear referrals of, for example, zone change applications in municipalities within their region, I know is one thing that they do.
Original POCD and others.
Okay, regional plan of conservation and development and that type of thing. And in terms of frequency of meetings, Fred, is that probably once a month, or do you happen to know?
If that, it really depends on what they're doing. I know what they've recently been working on the POCD, so there have been more frequent meetings, but I think it might be quarterly, but I'm not exactly sure for that.
Okay, and where is the office where the meetings take place?
They are on Church Street in Hartford, but they're generally hybrid at this time, or virtual, depending on the meeting, so.
Okay.
I think there's always the option to do virtual.
Okay, so is there anyone among the commission members who has interest in serving either as the representative or the alternate? We would welcome anyone who has interest in that. Okay. All right, maybe, what were you going to say?
It's only once a quarter?
Again, I'm not positive on the frequency. I know it's more frequent
All
as
right,
they've been working on the POCD, but I think that's in draft form right now. So.
I'll raise my hand on the basis that it is once a quarter, I hope.
Okay, so let's,
I say you can't hold me to that, Peter.
All right,
so I would move to nominate Peter Lambruni as the representative to the Capital Regional Council of Governments. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then next would be for the alternate position, which I'm assuming is going to be when Peter is unable to make it. Anyone interested in that role? Tom, Joe, that would be great. I will make a motion to nominate Joe Ercolani as the alternate to the Regional Council of Governments. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is appointment to the Economic Development and Improvement Commission. Is that the one you're on currently, Peter? So is your term, that must be done every year, I guess?
I assume so, yeah.
Is that something you're
I could
interested in
continue, yeah.
staying?
It's not too, unless, Paul, I mean, you were doing this before. Would you like to go back on?
You know what, with my work travel schedule still, I'd end up missing.
All right.
Otherwise, I would.
Dave, would you like to try it?
No, I'm the same as him, but the meetings on time-wise don't work.
Meetings are held here. They're once a month. Lunch is served. Just
You get good lunches, some of the best lunches. Dave Drake, how about you?
So, Mark.
Okay. All right, so, and anyone with a burning desire for the alternate spot? If not,
I can be the alternate.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, I move David Drake as the liaison to this is for liaison to economic development, which is the weekday lunch meeting once a month. That,
Wait,
Like I said, I was gonna be the alternate.
Oh, the alternate, I don't think there is an alternate.
I think he volunteered for an alternate.
You can,
You can put me down.
okay.
I'll do the best I
And if
can.
something,
I can't do it.
we can always make a
You can give me a
reshuffling
call
if we need
if
to.
you,
Okay. All right, I move David Drake for that position. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then finally, we have what's really more of an informal subcommittee, which is working on the upcoming Plan of Conservation and Development for Wethersfield, which has to be redone every 10 years. And I think Tony is serving on that, and are both of you, Tom?
Yes, I'm on that as well.
And Peter. So we're looking to fill one spot on that. And can you give some idea of what the frequency of meetings has been?
it's been monthly, once a month. I think we've had 3 or 4 meetings so far. Usually Wednesday evenings, after work, I think it's 5:30.
Okay. And again, that's really leading up to the process of actually adopting the plan will involve presentations to the full commission and so forth, but it's a working group to get going on
Yeah,
it.
there's a consultant that we've hired. A lot of the discussion is around some of the thoughts and ideas that the consultant has. Obviously, they can't do it alone, so they ask for our input. It doesn't really take much more than about an hour and a half each meeting, you know?
And just on the frequency on this one, right now, they're meeting about every 2 weeks
Oh, they-
because it's the early stage and they're doing a lot of information gathering. The next meeting is August 6th at 5 o'clock, and that's meeting number 4. And then the subsequent to that, the next meeting after that is Wednesday, the 14th at 5:30, to your point. So there's a,
So they've upped the frequency.
yeah, because of the activity.
Okay.
But they made it clear that once they begin to get drafts together, there'll be a lot less in terms of meetings, and then they'll just, when the draft's ready, they'll come back to you all, to the committee, and ask you to reconvene.
Okay. So is there anyone who has any interest? Tracy? That would be great. And I don't know whether last time we even did the formal motion or not, but why don't we do it? Anyway, I move Tracy Gianfrido to be part of the POCD working group. Is there a second?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I think we covered all of that, and we're going to move on under old business to a continuation of a public hearing, 2184-24, regarding Raising Cane's Restaurant, seeking a special permit under the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations for a restaurant with drive-through window at 1298 Silas Deane Highway. I think the first hearing on that was on May 21st. And just for anybody in the audience,
Thank you.
thank you. For anyone in the audience who's either here on this particular public hearing matter or on the one that we have after this, if you haven't been here before, just to quickly give you an overview of our procedure. First, we'll hear from the applicant, and they'll make their presentation. Commission members have a chance to ask questions. There will then be an opportunity for anybody in the audience, if you'd like to speak with a question or a comment, then it'll go back to the applicant with a chance to respond to any comments that have been made. And then if all items have been covered, we would close the hearing. I would just remind you that once the public hearing closes, we're unable to have any further input either from the public or the applicant. And that is pretty much the gist of things. And I guess even though we have 9 people here tonight, I would just mention that under our rules of procedure, we're 9 regular members, and we must have 5 affirmative votes to approve any application or take any action, regardless of the number of people who are voting. With that said, I will, and anyone who speaks, please identify yourself and come up to the podium. And if members of the public have questions, if you can just direct them to the commission, we'll get answers for you from the applicant. Okay, with that said, if you'd like to identify yourself.
Thank you. Sarah Sharp. I'm a lawyer with offices at 135 Broad Street in Milford. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the commission. We were here before you last on May 21st, as was mentioned, and while it's been a while since we were before you, that time has been put to good use. We have addressed all of the town engineer's substantive comments. There are 4 outstanding comments that are essentially Scrivener's errors that we'll be happy to address as conditions of approval and that our civil engineer can speak with. The biggest change that you'll see is the town engineer and some of the commissioners asked about keeping this a full access driveway as it has always been. And so we did reconfigure the site to make this full access to allow left and right turns out with 2 separate lanes, and then the entrance lane. We have our traffic engineer here to speak to that as well. Of course, ultimately, we'll need approval from DOT for the configuration, but this was our effort to accommodate, the town's desire to have the full access maintained. And there was a question about reducing our parking, and at the last meeting, we had a site plan with 40 parking spaces. With the reconfiguration, we've been able to reduce that to 36. And also reduce some conflicts between where cars are exiting the drive-through queue and where there were some parking spaces closer to the exit drive previously. And last, there was an outstanding question about what we do with our used cooking oil. I gave the commissioners a handout that describes our joint venture with Valero Energy Corporation. So we have that cooking oil collected and it's used to create sustainable aviation fuel. In 2023, we had capacity to produce 1.2 billion gallons of renewable diesel. So that is what we do with our fuel, and we're very proud of the what we've been able to accomplish with that. With all of that, I'm going to turn it over to our civil engineer, Jeff Board, to walk you through the site plan changes. And we also have Michael Wolfhurst here, our traffic engineer with Bowman, that will talk about the traffic implications as well. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jeff Board, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Bowler Engineering, located at 65 LaSalle Road, West Hartford, Connecticut. Sarah did a great job, stole some of my thunder on the site plan changes here since my colleague Wayne last presented to you guys. And I apologize for Tracy and Chris here being the new members. I don't know if you heard the last meeting or not, but basically, as Sarah alluded to, part of what we heard from the commission was that they wanted us to get that parking number down closer to what was required. And north being to the top of the page, just to the west of where the new dumpster location is, we've added 2 EV charging stations, relocated that dumpster, and then lost 1 space on that row of parking. And then on the southern row of parking, as Sarah alluded to, opposite the exit for the drive-through, we eliminated 1 more space, which took out some vehicular conflicts with that parking stall. And then as you head to the east, or bottom right-hand side of the page, 2 additional spaces were eliminated down in that corner. So that it reduced the impervious coverage to what's already being reduced. And it's important to remind even the new members that the current site in its existing conditions is 78% impervious cover. The required in this zone is 75%, so currently what's on site today is 3% over that required number, with no measurable water quality treatment being put in place. This proposal will reduce that impervious by 2,600 square feet and bringing it into actual compliance now. So we'll be at 72, 73% under what's allowable, in addition to some of the town engineer's comments provided belts and suspenders to this stormwater management design in the sense that the new application tonight, we've introduced a water quality infiltration system in the northeast corner of the site that treats the roof water runoff, in addition to the water quality vortechnics unit that was on the original design application. So not only are we reducing the impervious, we're also treating the water quality to leave it in a much better condition post-construction than is operating today. I mentioned the EV charging. The only other thing was with the driveway, which is subject to DOT approval, and Sarah did a good job describing it. Basically, one of the comments that came from engineering on his last review letter was to make those 11-foot lanes. So the two exiting maneuvers, both left and right, are now 11-foot lanes, so we were able to reduce that by 2 feet per that last letter that he sent out. And then to Sarah's point, the 4 comments that are remaining, 3 of them were, one of them was removing a note, one was removing an extra detail. The only one that will require a plan change, and it's minimal, is we had a yard drain in the dumpster location. The town engineer simply asked us to make that an actual structure with a minimum size 10-inch pipe out of it so it wouldn't clog as easily, and then provide a hood, which all of our catch basins have hoods on them anyway. So I think that'd be the only change that we'd be happy to have as a condition, and we'll make that in the building permit submission that comes back in. And with that, I don't know, Sarah, if we close, or you want to turn it over to Michael?
Excuse me, I think Commissioner Lambruni has a question for the engineer.
Yeah, there's and this is a bit dated, it goes back to May 8th, so this may have been addressed, so please bear with me, but there's a comment here from our town planner about the 2 lanes where you're stacking. The requirement is that they're supposed to be 11 feet, and they were 10 feet. I assume that's where it bends over and merges into the 1 lane, that area there, right? Is that
Correct.
where he's referring to? Is that 10 feet or 11 feet? And if it is 10 feet, is it safe, I guess is the question.
It is safe. So we have done, it's 10 feet, we have done vehicular turning analysis for that location, and I know that you guys can grant a waiver for that. And the reason we left it at that was because we heard concerns about the impervious cover, and in an effort to reduce the impervious cover, you're still able to safely run vehicles through that at 10 feet as opposed to the 11 feet. The 11 feet can be accommodated very easily, and quite frankly, you wouldn't notice it on the plan even. But again, in an effort to keep that impervious cover down, to bring it back into compliance, that's why we had left it at 10.
So if you went to 11 feet, you'd be coming towards the building and taking out some of the green space there? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, either towards the building and or towards the property line, and you'd basically be offsetting pervious for impervious.
Okay. I think we can waive that requirement, right, as a commission? So it's probably something we have to do in a motion.
Okay, we should.
Just keep that in mind. Okay, thank
Sure.
you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Tom?
Just one comment on to Peter's question. Upon the approval of that, I would recommend that the condition that Peter had mentioned also be, that the approval be subject to the enforcement and conformity with all applicable safety and health and environmental regulations. Just to add that onto any such condition that was mentioned by Peter.
That's fine. I think that's good.
Any other questions for the engineer? Paul?
Not an engineering question, it's about hours of operation, so I can wait.
Okay, Dave, did you have a question for the engineer?
Yeah, did you, go ahead.
I just have some more questions. The electric vehicle charging, did you have to do that up in Milford? Or was that before it became a regulation the state of Connecticut?
That was before it became a regulation. I don't believe, the only one that's been put in Connecticut is the one up in Enfield, and I don't believe we had to do EV charging.
Infrastructure, but I guess I'm trying to figure from a business standpoint, a parking place to you is very important property.
Correct.
And how can you, I mean, how does this take place? Do you hire a company to come in and put these in and then job it out that way? I'm just trying to. I can't
Typically, yes,
figure out-
it's an outside consultant that would come in to fit out the actual equipment that goes into it, so there'd be a sub-consultant that would do that work, and typically it would run back to a house panel. I know that came up as a comment from the town to have those added. Normally, a lot of developers are pushing back on that new 10% requirement, especially in a residential setting, just because, to your point, they are valuable spaces. But yeah, that would be done by, basically, we provide a spec in the actual drawings themselves, and it would be done by a third party.
I'm just trying to figure out who has the risk and the safety involved to run those every day. And that, it's a restaurant really doesn't, have
Yeah, and
that
I don't know
expertise.
if Kane's has any other examples of EV charging. Okay, so it seems, it's,
I'm asking the question more for gaining information of, because this will be the future, and how their state is saying to you, you must run it this way.
yeah, it's such a gray area right now. We've been running into this question in front of most of the commissions these days as far as how they get maintained, where they're supposed to be positioned, does it need to be ADA compliant? The percentages that are getting thrown around on some of these sites would require, we did one recently, it was 400 spaces on site, we had to do 52 EV charging stations or something, and there was no way that, so basically they're providing conduits for future EV charging, depending where it goes, so.
Now, I was
But-
just wondering if you put in the ability to have them there, if the state would allow you to, not put them in until the time came that they were, required. I mean, it's a fuzzy, it's a gray area.
It's definitely a gray area, and we've gotten away on several projects where we do provide conduit to those locations. In this instance, the way that the comment read was it was to be installed, and it's similar to a lot of the ones in the area. So in this instance, it's one piece of equipment in between two parking spaces that serves both spaces.
I just, from a standpoint, we're gonna face this again, and I'm.
It's going to be coming up more and more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, your stormwater treatment system, what details that on drawings? Or maybe you can explain, is it just a settling tank?
Yeah, so it's basically a Coltech recharger system, so it's one of the parabolic plastic chambers that is taking the roof water runoff, and then all of the catch basins are deep sump hooded catch basins that then go to that water quality vortechnic system. So basically, the way we had designed it previous, because of the reduction in impervious, we didn't need to provide that infiltration by code or by regulation. So technically, it met the requirements. The town engineer had a suggestion to basically treat that water quality volume as if it were a new development. So that's why we took that runoff from the roof, and now we're treating it with an infiltration basin in that one location.
You're not treating it, though, you're just letting it settle out, that's.
You let it settle out, yep. And it goes basically through an isolator row, which helps the TSS removal.
Who cleans that? Do your own employees clean it, or is that a service you pay somebody to do every 6 months?
Somebody would be coming in to vacuum that out, and basically what we do, and it gets lost in our 500-page drainage report, but in the backs of our drainage reports, we have an operations and maintenance manual that goes through all of the BMPs we have on site, whether it's a catch basin, infiltration system. It'll talk to street sweeping, it'll talk to how often and frequent these things have to be vacuumed out, and typically it's an outside service that will come in and do that. In this instance, it's almost redundant. It's taking basically the clean roof water, if you will, and going to the back, so there'll be no debris in that instance in that system.
No, I have no problem, eventually you'll fill it, but yeah,
Yep.
okay. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. I'll turn it over to Mike with Bowman.
Michael Wolfhurst, registered professional civil engineer in the state of Connecticut and traffic engineer with Bowman Consulting Group. As was previously mentioned a few times this evening, we've received comments from town engineering to reassess the full access driveway, whereas previously there was only a right turn egress provided on the site plan. You can see now in the revised site plan an incremental change with the addition of a left turn lane egress exiting the site. Since this was a new movement that had not previously been evaluated, additional engineering study was conducted in the form of a gap study along Route 99. The study was intended to evaluate if there are sufficient gaps for traffic exiting the site to be able to operate properly, and was found to be adequate for left turn operations as proposed in the new site plan layout. In addition to that, no further changes to the overall findings of the traffic study were made, and overall, the original determination of no significant impacts to the adjacent roadways would remain as was originally indicated by our study. Yep, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Just a couple. One is, I was just wondering, what's the total, what's the maximum number of vehicles that can be stacked within the drive-through lanes, the double drive-through?
So the maximum number that we have available for storage, I believe, is at least 2 vehicles, 3 vehicles?
In the, sorry.
In the
In the drive-through queue?
Correct.
28.
Sorry.
total? Okay.
28 total, yes.
And-
And I believe that this question did come up last time, and we spoke internally. I know I spoke last time about the thousands of locations that Raising Cane's has, and this is, an optimal number of stacking spaces for their operations. Obviously, we know that there's a honeymoon phase, and we work with local police department to have a plan. We hire off-duty officers to make sure that traffic is managed during that honeymoon phase. But once the location is stabilized, and particularly as more locations open in the state of Connecticut, in general, the 28 queuing spaces is sufficient for our operations.
Okay, and I guess one other question that I think we may have covered last time. What's the approximate difference in peak hour traffic generation for the prior restaurant without a drive-through and the proposed restaurant with a drive-through, I guess, based on the ITE manual, if you're
Right.
using that?
Yeah, and so we did perform a comparison of the previous site trip generation, which was a Denny's restaurant. Overall, the previous site was, based on ITE trip generation estimates, not actual field counts, generated about 56 peak hour trips in the Friday midday peak hour, 56 in the Friday afternoon, and 63 in the Saturday midday peak hour. The new proposed restaurant would generate, and bear with me, just want to get the numbers correct for you. Net new project trips total 86 new project trips in and out generated in the Friday midday peak hour, 56 new trips in the Friday afternoon peak hour, and 92 total project vehicle trips in the Saturday midday peak hour.
So-
It is more than the previous use, however, not unmanaged by the driveway operation.
Right, and then the nearest signal lights on the Silas Deane Highway, north and south, are how far away?
They're approximately 300 feet between the signals, and the driveway is located roughly in the middle, so it's approximately 150 feet on either side.
Okay.
One thing that I would add is from the gap study that we did to really validate that the driveway would operate appropriately, we did find acceptable gaps, and part of what makes that possible is that those signals do generate gaps for traffic exiting. The analysis was also updated to reflect that left turn exit, and we observed in our traffic models that the 95th percentile queue for that left turn, which effectively is a condition that happens not frequently during the peak hour, maybe 1 or 2 times, was less than 2 vehicles. So if you can imagine, at worst case, about 2 vehicles that might be stacked up in that left turn lane, but something that would happen very infrequently during the peak.
And in any event, I guess if people are waiting to turn left, they're not blocking people from turning right and continuing to exit.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, anybody else have questions for the traffic engineer? Peter?
Just a curiosity question. I think you started this design by having a right only,
That's correct.
and then you changed it because input from our engineering group, is that what you said?
Right, we had received comments from town engineering to consider full access for this.
Okay, why was your thinking initially, and did you find that safer? I mean, why did you start there and not have where you ended up?
Well, I can't speak for other site layout considerations. Were there other?
Sorry,
Sure.
Sarah Sharp, 135 Broad Street. I think that part of the original design with the right turn out, we hadn't done the gap study, and we know that there's a lot of traffic on Silas Deane. There's a lot of lanes there. We thought that would be something the town would want, quite frankly. So we went that direction, but then when we heard feedback that it was actually the opposite, that from the town engineer, that they would prefer it to be full access. It's currently full access, and that there was a concern that with the right out only, it would result in cars taking a right out and then taking a U-turn or using adjacent properties to make a turnaround, and that was why we requested. We did the gap study, and then it demonstrated that it really will work because of those lights and the way that the traffic functions there. At the end of the day, it will be subject to DOT review to confirm that it's safe and acceptable, and if they determine that it's not, and they want us to do a right out, we would be back with you for an amendment.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more thing before we turn it over. I believe on the electric charging that the state statute requires that we put in the infrastructure. The comment from the town engineer was to make it a charging station, which is why it's shown that way. If for some reason it was desired that we just put in the infrastructure, that would be fine with us. We use a national contractor, Blink, that has tons of experience doing this, so we know that it's safe and it's done the right way. So I just wanted to give you that additional reassurance. Thank you.
Where on the plan is the electric vehicle?
The electric vehicle charging is in where the old dumpster location is, so, yeah, northeast, sort of.
Okay.
I
With
don't think I have
with the striping in between them?
That's correct.
Okay. On the top right, the left of the green bush where the drive-through goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant. I see in the materials that were on our table as we came in, a memo dated July the 12th from Derek Greger, the Wethersfield town engineer, that contained comments that are based upon quote, review of materials submitted for the above reference application. Going back in terms of the timeline for the memoranda that have been submitted, my recollection is that the latest piece of correspondence from the applicant was a memorandum from the applicant's engineer in response to an earlier memo from the Wethersfield town engineer. The applicant's response was dated July the 10th. And so I don't see that there is any response or any reflection of any of the applicant's response to Mr. Greger's memo of July the 12th. So I would like to ask if the applicant has any questions or any concerns, any objections to compliance with the recommendations of the town engineer as stated in his July 12th memorandum.
Absolutely no objections. I think that we will easily comply with them as conditions of approval in the updated plans. We just didn't have time to get them resubmitted to you before tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just, if I may just follow up, are you saying that you're aware of this latest
Yes,
and you've reviewed it?
yes,
Your engineer has reviewed it?
yes,
And you feel that you can address all four of these, right?
yes,
Okay,
Yes.
just for the record. I'm
yes,
just trying to
absolutely.
understand.
Thank you.
Okay,
Right, and it seems like some of them are just sort of labeling
Yeah.
clarifications. I guess the most involved is maybe number 2 with the structure.
Right, that's correct, and I believe Jeff Board spoke to that we can easily address that on the updated plans to show the proper detail that the town engineer is requesting for that
Okay.
dumpster catch basin.
Okay. Any,
could I just,
Yes.
the design review was done, I believe, at some point, right?
That's correct.
I didn't really have a chance to look through this carefully enough, unfortunately, to see what their feedback was. Can you just summarize for us quickly what they said? Were there any issues? Did you address any concerns that they had?
They had we did complete that review before our May 21st meeting. They had a favorable recommendation. They didn't request any changes. We went over the materials board. We had samples of the materials and the architectural design. I believe that they liked the streetscape with, the sort of outdoor seating towards the streetscape and all of the improved landscaping as compared to what it is today, and we do comply with material recommendations. We're also consistent with this stretch of Silas Deane Highway and other fast food and similar restaurants in the area, so they gave a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything further to present at this
Nope,
point?
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to open it up at this point to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Yes, sir, if you could come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Tom Carson from 12 Avalon Place. I'm just concerned about we're going to be adding potentially hundreds of left-hand turns on the Silas Deane Highway. I just wanted to get it off my chest just because it's been bothering me. Hopefully DOT will sort that out. But I think the honeymoon period that they talked about earlier of 11 days, I think it's going to last much longer until we get another Raising Cane's that's within 20 or 30 miles of us. And I think there are going to be a lot of people coming from the southern part of the state that want to experience it, might not be that familiar with the Silas Deane Highway, might be quick to take a left-hand turn, crossing, 2 lanes of northbound traffic to take that left. And we just had the police chief at the town hall yesterday, with a lot of plot points along the Silas Deane. And it's already heavily congested at certain times of the day. But I just wish that there was a little more clarification as to communication with their neighboring property owners that didn't want to allow an easement, so they could have had maybe a lighted signal to exit the location. It's just a little vague when I saw some of the comments about how they said their neighbors just weren't interested. I'm just curious as to what the nature, if that's where it ended. Was it they didn't come to a financial agreement, or if there's anything more that we need to know? But I'm just concerned about, which I think if you look at the numbers and how busy it's going to be, because the Enfield location is still really, really busy. It's a different setup up there. And I'd be happy, it's going to look really nice. It's going to be a real improvement, and it'll be a benefit to the town. But I think for the few weeks after it first opens, it's going to be a nightmare. And I think we're all sort of expecting that in terms of getting in and out. That's why they need a police presence. But just ongoing, just adding dozens and potentially hundreds of left-hand turns onto the Silas Deane is just concerning to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the public who would like to comment on this application? Anyone else in the public who'd like to comment on this application? Last call, anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on this application? Okay. Going back to the applicant, could you elaborate on the question about the potential for access from an adjacent property?
Absolutely. Sarah Sharp, 135 Broad Street. We did attempt to negotiate a cross-access easement with both of our adjacent property owners for many, many months, and they were not receptive to that, so they didn't want to do that in this instance. We will, by the time this store would open, if it's approved, also have Simsbury open, which I believe is 13 miles away, so there will be another location opening in the vicinity. If the police, when we work through that opening honeymoon plan, wanted the turn restricted to right out, then we would do that for the honeymoon period. We work with the local police department and what they want and what's safe, so just a couple of things to give you some reassurance there.
And could you just, in terms of working with the police during the honeymoon period, could you explain a little bit more about what's involved? Do you have an off-duty policeman
Yep.
on the property?
Yep, we have an entire sort of opening team that works with the local police departments on these opening plans, and so we'll work with the police chief at the police department to come up with the plan, and then we will hire off-duty police officers to, enforce the plan. So we aren't taking up the town's resources with on-duty officers. We'll be hiring our off-duty officers to help with that and make sure that everything runs smoothly as possible.
And will that plan be continued as the measures under that plan, the off-duty police, as long as necessary? So if it ends up being a, 3-week
Yes.
honeymoon period or a 4-week, you'll
That's
keep
correct.
going and you'll consult with the town police and authorities to make sure that you're doing what you need to do?
Absolutely, yes. We will continue it to make sure that it's safe. We want it to be successful for everyone, and we like to be a partner with the town, so absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
So, I share Tom's concern with the lifts. So, I'm glad to hear that, if you're gonna need to shut it off during a period, you're open to that, just to be safe, so that's good. I think you really need to consider that, at least in the initial part of this business. When are you going to go to DOT? I'm just curious, when are they going to weigh in on that?
Let me have Jeff weigh in on the encroachment permit process. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Board, Bowler Engineering. So basically, once we get through local entitlements, we'll probably be submitting for the encroachment permit within a week of getting through local entitlements, and then their process, depending on how inundated with things, usually 60 to 90 days, we'll get initial response back, and we'll submit the gap study, the traffic analysis to the DOT as part of that encroachment permit, which is basically just for the curb cut and then any utilities that are going into the Silas Deane.
So do they have I'll just say it simply, do they have the power to say, we don't like it, and we want you to go back to right only? I mean,
Yes.
Can they do that?
100%. And basically, that's why there's some redundancy here in the sense that if the DOT and all of their engineers review the gap study, review the traffic study, review the volumes, the signals, proximity, and they determine that that left-out maneuver is not safe, then 100% they would impose on us a right-out only, and then we'd be back before this commission to simply show you a blow-up of what that island in the middle would look like again.
So basically what you're saying, there's going to be more eyes on this
Correct.
issue, and a level of confidence will be introduced, or you may go back to where you started, right?
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Question related to traffic. I might have missed it. Hours of operation, both for inside and for the drive-through lanes?
Uh, 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. and 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. Saturdays? Friday and Saturdays are 10 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Okay, and that's for inside and drive-through simultaneously?
That's
Not
correct.
split?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, regarding the right and left, there's no history of, that building's been there a long time. I understand you expect to do more business than Denny's, I bet, because they went out of business, but there's no history of accidents there or anything like that. I'm not quite sure why anybody would be expecting, a problem. Of course, you're going to be busy, but yeah, everybody that goes right, like they said, they're going to go down to the shopping center, turn around, and come back. So I'm not sure what's going to be worse than just letting people go left unless there's another answer.
We did include crash data in the traffic report, and there is no significant crash data.
That's why I don't know why, again, if you had never brought it up, I don't think anybody would be discussing it, so, but we'll see.
I'm assuming that the traffic engineer would say that the volume that you're going to have here doesn't warrant another signal light so close to the other signals. Your position is the gaps are sufficient to handle things.
That's correct. It would not meet the warrants for another signal there.
Okay. Anybody further questions for the applicant? Do you have anything further? you'd
Nothing
like to say?
further unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. We're in a little bit of transition here in terms of, we're short a town planner. He's been involved in this application, but just wanting to make sure, it sounds, Fred, like the engineering review, is up to date as Tom established. And I think Justin's earlier review on the zoning by Justin was pretty comprehensive. So, as Peter referred earlier, I think there was a section in Justin's original memo where he did mention the 10-foot drive-through width, at least in a portion of the drive-through, and that we have the ability to issue a waiver to get it down from the normal 11 feet. Is that the only, I think that's the only waiver that would be necessary? Is that your
Yes, that's
understanding?
correct. And I did speak with Justin before he left, and he didn't have any other comments to add from his previous memo. We provided with our resubmission turning templates for F-250 and all of the trucks to make sure that they can make that maneuver at 10 feet. So that's the only waiver we're requesting.
And again, as to that waiver, the 10-foot width is only in portions of the
Yes,
drive-through, correct?
that's correct. In the turn, I believe, is the narrowest portion.
Okay, but if we were attempting, I guess if we were referring to it, we could just say, to 10 feet width in those portions as shown on the current
yes.
plan, for example. Okay,
Absolutely.
okay. Any other questions or anything by the commission before we decide whether or not we're ready to close the hearing? No questions? Do you have anything further before we would consider a motion to close the hearing?
Nope. If there's anything that you feel you don't have enough information on to, give a favorable vote for this tonight, or you just need some more information, please ask us questions so that we can answer those. We really appreciate your time, and I know that it took a while between the first meeting and the last, but we hope that this addresses all your comments, and I know it does address the town engineers and the planner's comments previously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I have a question just for the commission members, just trying to keep track of how many of you were here on May 21st for the first hearing on this. I was, so we've got, Dave, Joe, Tom, and Joe. So 5 of us were here. And then I guess as to those of you who were not, Tom, for example, and Paul, have you had a chance to?
And me.
And Peter, have you had a chance to familiarize yourselves with the minutes and with the record? And do you feel comfortable participating in a vote? Yes to Paul and
Yes.
Peter and Tom.
I was here
You
at
were
that
here,
meeting.
sorry. I was missing somebody else. New members, I guess, Tracy, have you had a chance to acclimate yourself to all the materials, and do you feel comfortable that you understand the first record and comfortable to participate?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Chris, again, your comfort level and whether you've had an opportunity to, to review things.
I have reviewed them, but I will be abstaining from the vote.
Okay, so 8 of us would be voting, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So, and again, last call, if anybody feels that there's any more information we need, or it appears that nobody feels that way. So, all right, with that said, I guess if anybody would like to make a motion to close the hearing, we could consider that. Paul?
Make a motion to close it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Tracy, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is now closed, and we can start our deliberations, and our practice has been making a motion and getting that on the floor with a second, and then deliberate on the pending motion. Would somebody like to do that? Or, alternatively, if you want to start talking about things without the motion, we are able to do that as well. So if anybody wants to move or speak on this, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take a crack at a motion. As per our usual practice, the motion will be in the form of affirmative action on the application. It will require an affirmative vote of at least 5 members of the commission to be adopted. And I guess my motion is as follows. I move that application 2184-24-Z, Raising Cane's Restaurant LLC, seeking a special permit in accordance with section 5.2.f.3, permitted principal uses, hospitality uses of the Wethersfield Zoning Regulations for a restaurant with drive-through window at 1298 Silas Deane Highway, be approved, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the waiver that has been previously discussed is being needed with regards to the plans that have been submitted, be included as part of the approval, that such waiver and any approval of this application also be subject to the received recommendations and the applicant's response to those recommendations, and also be subject to the further regulatory enforcement by the town engineer and other applicable officials, and that the approval and the work to be done at the site be in accord with all applicable health, safety, and environmental regulations consistent with the recommendations and the concerns expressed in the various memos submitted by the town engineer and the town planner, respectively.
So, Tom, if I could just maybe ask you a question. So the first part of your motion includes a proposed waiver to allow portions of the drive-through width to be reduced from 11 feet to 10 feet, in those areas as shown on the plans, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding, that the
Okay.
applicant needs that waiver
Okay.
because its plans show the 10-foot rather than the 11-foot.
All right.
So
And
it would include that waiver, yes.
And as part of that, we would be finding that we believe that waiver can be granted without any adverse impacts and to the operation of the property, correct?
I believe that is an implicit
Okay.
finding in accord with the motion.
Okay, and then I guess just to be specific, I know that the applicant had responded to the town engineer comments, but we would be incorporating comments 1 through 4 in the town engineer's memo dated July 12th, in which he reviewed the most recent plans of the applicant, correct?
That would be correct, and also the response of the applicant during the course of this hearing indicating that they had no difficulty in complying with those recommendations from the town engineer.
Okay, that's fine. And I guess, in terms of your sort of catch-all at the end, in terms of, all applicable health and safety and so forth, I think that goes even without saying, in the sense that they've got to go through building code review, fire code review, health department, all of those things in the normal course, both to be able to get a building permit and a certificate of occupancy, whether we state it or not. But I guess I just want to be, you had earlier than that more broadly stated any other comments of officials in the, in the record that had been generated. So I just want to be careful we don't create any confusion there, because I think we've captured the town engineer operative current comments and with the applicant's responses as you've indicated, and they will have to go through, the normal course subsequent approval process by all the departments of the town. But just,
Yeah, I have no objection to that clarification.
okay. So that would be my only comment. Is there a second to Tom's motion?
I'll second.
Peter, second, and now let's open it for deliberation. Tracy?
I did have one question or comment
Yeah.
back to the commission. You spoke earlier on the fact that they typically use a third party for installing, owning, operating the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, not necessarily the wiring, but the actual post, et cetera. And I think we should probably include something like that into, do we need, I should ask, do we need to include that in here, or is that something that comes out in the building permit?
Yeah, I guess and again, that's a relatively new requirement, I think, under state statute, but I don't know that it matters whether they're operating it or whether a third party is operating it, as long as it's there and functional. I don't think the requirements get to that level, so I think it's
Just wanna make
okay.
sure.
Okay, thank you for raising
Because
that.
typically it will be a third party.
Yep.
Then, so.
Anybody else? Tom?
Yeah, my response to that is that since they would be the property owner and have that as a legal responsibility, whether they contract that responsibility out to some other entity, they still have ultimate responsibility and liability for anything that might go awry. So I don't see that's a major issue or obstacle to the approval.
Thank you. Anybody else, either with questions or anybody have any comments just on the application itself before we vote?
My only thought was, and I know I read through this stuff and I was curious, I didn't see it in there, the hours of operation, I kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. 3 a.m.?
Yeah, so I guess first off, I don't believe off my memory here that we have anything in our regulations that provides, like a maximum hour of operation. I'm curious, for example, it's over the town line, but into Rocky Hill where you have the Wendy's right off the highway, I'm curious how late they operate. I would assume it probably goes somewhat late.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did have a chance to kind of glance through our zoning regulations and in particular the various criteria for approval of special use permit. There was nothing in those relating to hours of operation for this kind of use.
We did talk about it on an unrelated application a few months ago. I know where somebody was going to have a multiple operator hair salon, and if you recall, they wanted to go till 2 a.m. I mean, to me, I guess part of the practical effect is how many people do we reasonably expect are going to be flooding at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. or even 1 a.m. I guess I would have to assume it's going to be a much lighter load than during those peak daytime hours.
And with respect to the other application that you mentioned, there's different kind of uses, and this is being basically public restaurant use, and it's not at all unusual for, particularly in this day and age, for fast food restaurants to be 24-hour operation. In fact, I think the old Denny's restaurant, which was in this location prior to this time, was a 24-hour operation.
That's a good
So,
point.
yeah.
Joe?
I just checked, Wendy's closes at 3 a.m.
Oh,
today,
There we go.
not the
okay,
weekend, today.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking for, are we setting precedent here? Or-
Yep, and I would imagine that if it's not economical for them to stay open until 3 a.m., they're probably going to cut it back, potentially anyway. But, all right, is there any else? And if no other comments, then we can take up the motion for a vote. 8 of us voting, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? An abstention?
Aye.
To Chris abstention, okay. Thank you. So the application is approved. Good luck as you go forward.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have another public hearing item, 3.1, Jill Rizzo-Flower, seeking special permit for a home occupation of a doggie daycare at 106 Griswold Road. If the applicant would like to come up to the podium and state your name and address and explain to us what your proposal is.
Hello, I'm Jill Rizzo-Flower of 106 Griswold Road. I'm writing to request a special permit to run a low-volume doggy daycare and boarding facility out of my home. I have been providing services on the Rover app since 2021, offering boarding, daycare, walks, and drop-ins. I have over 75 five-star reviews and 27 repeat clients. We have many pets who we love and who have become a part of our family. I never accept more than 3 dogs at a time, in addition to my own dog, Banjo, for a total of 4. Our yard is fully fenced in, and animals are out with supervision. They do not go out past 9:30 p.m. When families come to drop off or pick up their dogs, they pull into our driveway and are in and out very quickly. I keep those hours reasonable, so if they want to come past 10 p.m., I have them wait till the next morning. All dogs come for a meet and greet with me and my dog to make sure they are suitable, safe company for my family and my neighborhood. And I know that there will be some questions and concerns that I would like to address after the fact. But just in this moment, I want to express that doggy daycare feels like perhaps the wrong terminology to describe what I'd like to continue to do. I would like to periodically board familiar dogs for short periods of time and only occasionally. In your packets, you'll see kind of the scope of what my business looks like for the calendar year so far in 2024. And the main point here is that we've had dogs for 26% of the year to date. For 40 days, we've had a dog that is not ours in the home. 5 days of those, we've had 2 dogs boarding, and only 2 days so far we've had 3 dogs boarding. So I just wanted to really make sure that the scope of the business was clear, and I am not intending to, if I receive the permit, to make it a larger scale thing than that. I would just like to continue the low volume that I'm doing.
And you've been doing it for how long until you stopped?
Since 2021, and in 3 towns. So we have a couple families who've actually followed us through multiple houses.
How long have you been living and doing it from the Wethersfield location?
Since May of 2023.
And how was it, how did it come about that you're here tonight? Was there some type of enforcement letter from the zoning enforcement officer?
Yes, we received a letter.
Okay, and what, do you know if that was prompted by, a complaint of someone in the area, for example?
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right, open it up to questions by the commission at this point? Do people have questions? Tom?
Yes, ma'am. I'm curious, when you accept a canine for your services, do you do any checking in terms of the comprehensiveness of the vaccinations that each dog has had before you begin operations with that dog?
Yes.
So you, for example, you make sure that all the dogs that have been boarded with you are up to date with rabies vaccination, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I should just add, there is one letter in the record that I think we received by email today from town staff. It's dated July 16th from James Pettit at 88 Griswold Road.
Two others in the packet.
Okay, 2 others in the packet. He writes in opposition to the application. He's lived on Griswold Road for over 10 years. When he purchased his house, he indicates he knew he would be adjacent to heavily used ball fields, soccer fields, swimming ponds, not a doggy daycare. He believes that it would detract from the value of the neighborhood and diminish the property value of his house. And wishes, the applicant finds a suitable location, but not in this location. And I think there are a couple other letters here as well. Okay, the next, whoops. Looks like I may be out of sync. Okay. Here we go. One of them is Philip and Terry Ferraguta, 100 Griswold Road. They live directly next door to 106 Griswold Road, the applicant's property, and have strong concerns and are opposed to the application. They indicate that when the neighbors moved in spring of '23, they have already had a part-time doggy daycare with 3 to 4 dogs, including their own dog. Their property is bordered on 2 sides by a walk path from Griswold Road to Millwoods Park, and the dogs bark nonstop at the people using the path. They indicate that they filed a complaint with the State Health Department because they didn't feel the dog droppings in the yard were being cleaned up, and they filed a complaint with the town about lawn upkeep. I guess the lawn upkeep has been addressed, they say, but the barking is still a concern, and they are concerned about how these issues will be addressed if the application is approved. All right, and then another one is from Ted and Mary Dombrowskis, dated July 5th. And they're writing, I believe, from 15 Florence Street in West Hartford, Connecticut. They're writing to express support for the proposal. It indicates the applicant's commitment and passion to this type of service, and they believe that it will operate with the highest standards of cleanliness, professionalism, and safety. And it talks about consideration for noise control. They've known the applicant for 16 years. She's responsible and attentive to the pets, and they urge approval of this. And I guess one question I would have based on that letter is specifically what noise control measures would you be taking to prevent effects on neighboring properties?
Yeah, so yes, dogs bark. My own dog, Banjo, is honestly probably our biggest offender. He's very chatty, he likes to bark while he's playing. But if the dogs are getting too loud, I make an effort to bring them inside. We're not typically out for more than half an hour at a time. And again, I said this, but we are not out before 7 a.m. or after 9:30 in accordance with the noise ordinance of the town. There is a privacy fence along the long part of the path next to Millwoods, so the dogs don't really see the people until they're practically in the park.
And are the dogs ever outside, without supervision?
Rarely. I am generally out there with them. Our own dog is probably the exception.
And how many days a week do you accept dogs to stay with you? Could it be Monday through Sunday on a given week if you had people who were traveling, for example?
I would say on average we have maybe 3 stays a month, and it is generally on the weekends.
And are any of them drop off, pick up the same day, or are they all overnights?
Once in a while, we will have a dog come for like a daycare sort of situation where they'll pick up on the same day, but usually they stay overnight.
Okay. Dave Drake.
Yeah, unless I missed it, what do you have for fencing going around? I don't think it's mentioned here. Are you is it full privacy fence all the way around and high?
He's going to help.
Hi, I'm Greg Flower. I'm Jill's husband. We have an 8-foot privacy fence along the one side of our property where the walking path borders. And then we have 6-foot like picketed vinyl fence on the other side. And in the back, we have black chain link fence, 6 foot.
And the dogs can't jump out?
When this was not when we lived in Wethersfield, we had one dog probably 2 years ago jump a 6-foot fence. Their owners warned us about it before we boarded them. Yeah, but other than that, we've probably boarded 75 to 100 dogs and have never had an issue.
My concern is you are next to a park with kids, and I'm not saying this is a dangerous situation, but it could be a dangerous situation with the wrong dogs, and I'll be honest with you, I do have some concerns.
That's one of the reasons that we go through a pre-boarding process where we do a meet and greet to make sure the dog is right for us and for our family and for our own dog as well.
I mean, is it possible that I'm just thinking, could we put together rules that tell you what you're allowed to have in there? I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want to live next to you, not to say you're not nice, I wouldn't want to live next to you with 3 or 4 dogs there every day. If it was just on a Saturday afternoon maybe, but
I think
I don't know.
with all due respect, Mr.
Yeah.
Drake, I think every day is an exaggeration.
Yeah.
We had dogs 26% of the days from January through May.
So every 4 days you have a dog. Yeah.
More or less.
Okay, that's understandable. Okay.
Any other commission members? Peter and then Chris?
When they drop the dogs off, when do they usually do that? What time?
It really depends on their schedule and my schedule, but it is up to the, me and the dog owner to decide, and their travel plans. So it varies. But like I said, I don't get them before 7 a.m. and if they want to come pick up after 10 p.m., I have them wait until the next day.
When you mentioned 7 a.m., I wasn't clear. Do you let the dogs out after 7 a.m.? Is that the earliest they go out? Is that what you meant?
Yes.
So they could be barking at 7 a.m. in the morning?
They could be.
Well, if they're out there at 7 a.m., they probably are. Why so early, I guess, is my question.
I don't think it is always that early, but I'm just saying we don't go out earlier than that. It depends on the dog and when it seems like they need to use the bathroom.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, a couple questions. So I did a quick look, and it appears state statute doesn't require licensure above 3 dogs.
That is what I thought.
I mean, under 3 or under, yeah. So that includes your dog in those 3?
I'm a little uncertain. It seems as though, I asked many questions when I was initially talking to Charles Morrison and Justin LaFountain to make sure that I did need to go through this process because, I know that you're allowed to have 6 pets yourself in Connecticut. So yes, I was wondering, but it was reiterated to me many times that I needed to apply for this permit.
Yes, so my question is regarding the boarding specifically. Connecticut state law requires commercial licensing above 3 boarded animals. So my question is, do you intend to ever board more than those 3?
I do not.
And then one of the concerns mentioned in the public comment were about health and safety. And I was just wondering about what health and safety measures you have in place for things like being that close to a park, lots of kids, the smell of the dog droppings and things like that. How often are you cleaning them and things like that?
So, we were doing it probably a couple of times a week. But I know that neighbors have concerns about that, and I'd like to suggest that that is something I can fix, and that I am happy to agree to clean up the yard daily by a certain hour. Truthfully, my dog is kind of a diva and will not go in our own yard, so I can assure you there is actually no dog poop in our yard currently, as we haven't been boarding.
Joe, do you have a question? Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, you mentioned that there was a law about 6 pets. I thought in Wethersfield it was 4. Wasn't there something? Joe, anybody know of this? Okay.
Sure. Some towns I know limit it to 4 dogs.
Yeah, I
don't know if
thought
we're one of
Wethersfield
them.
did.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions, commission members, before we hear from the public? All right, why don't we go to public comment? Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on this application? You see a hand. Whichever of you would like to.
I would like to speak.
Okay, looks like several of you, so we'll go.
My name's Tanisha Rogers. I live at 94 Griswold Road. I'm about 2 houses down from the Rizzo family. My concern is that she said that she does not allow her dog to go out by herself and stay out on the back porch, but I actually have video where she has let the dog out, and the dog has been back there barking at all times of the day, and that the dog is out there for several times barking, waiting to come in. That was one of my concerns. The other concern is that the way their fence line is, if they do have a dog that does go out, that dog could jump over the fence depending on the breed of the dog, because the fence is not that high. And I have young children, so I'm concerned about their dogs that they're boarding. Although she's saying that she knows the dogs, but she's saying she's taking clients from off of a website for dogs that she's boarding or walking or what have you. But if you don't really know those dogs can become vicious. They can, you don't know their mentality. They can jump, they can do something, they can escape, they can get away. Also, being in a residential area, the noise is obsessive. There's times where their dog, they had 2 dogs at one point. I only saw one recently, but there were 2 dogs at one point where I'm working from home, and I actually had to close the doors and close my windows and move to another area of my home just so I can run my meetings. So it's been a nuisance to me and a nuisance to my job, being able that I have to stop in the middle of my job to do things. The other problem that I have with it is just the fact that they said that they're being cleanly with cleaning it up, but there's been plenty of times when their own yard, grass is high, in the front, in the back, things have not been cleaned. More recently, I've seen them cleaning their yard, and now I know why, because when I got the letter in the mail that they want to have the doggy daycare, now I understand why the dog is sometimes going more in the house and not just left out all the time. But there had been times where the dog was left outside for several hours at times, where you're there and you're watching, you're looking, and I mean, like I said, just the noise and everything else, so that's what my concern is.
And just to clarify, I think you said you're 2 houses away?
Yep, so their house is here, I'm not the next house next to them, I'm the following house.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, did you have a question?
No, yep.
Could you just clear something up for me? I went there today, and I stood by the walkway. I didn't go on the property or anything, but standing from the walkway, looking at the fence on the right side, it's solid, and it looks like it's about 6 feet.
Right.
I didn't go up to it. But when I walked down the sidewalk and looked at the other side,
Yep.
which is the left side, it didn't look like 6 feet to me. I think it was mentioned that that was 6 feet as well. It looked more like 4 feet. And then the chain link fence way in the back, it's hard to tell how tall it was, but that didn't look like 6 feet either. So could you clear up, what is the back fence that's the chain link, and what's the picket fence? What are the heights of those 2 fences?
To me, if I can demonstrate, I think the height is like closer to where my waistline is.
When you walk up to it?
When I walk up to it.
Yeah, I thought it was about
Sometimes-
4 feet.
Yeah, sometimes I walk back that way to cut through, and it is very low. And my concern is that if they have a large breed dog, that dog can jump the fence and potentially hurt one of my own children. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Your remarks with regards to the animal that's been, that you had observed, that you photographed, barking, being outside, do you know the identity of that dog? Was it one of the ones that were being boarded, or is it the dog that is the owner's dog?
I think it's the owner's dog, because I didn't know which ones, because in the beginning, when I saw her with 2 dogs for a long time, then all of a sudden I only saw 1 dog. So more recently, this was the 1 dog, and I believe it's their own dog. And that dog was out just recently, where I videotaped the dog in the back, barking at the back door, waiting for someone to open the door for the dog, and just obsessively barking, not just in the daytime, but also at night. I have 2 videos of that as well.
Well, you realize that this commission doesn't have the authority to, through the zoning regulations anyway, regulate their use or the activities of their own animal.
Right. I'm just concerned about the other animals that she may have.
That would be boarding, that this commission has any, authority or concern about.
Right, and that's what I'm concerned about, the other dogs that she may also have in addition to her own dog, but she said she was
Well,
going
my
to
question
board
is,
3.
do you know whether or not any of the other dogs that have been boarded there have posed a similar problem to the one dog that apparently is the owner's animal?
So there were 2 dogs. One was her dog, and I assume it was the other dog that she said in the beginning that she was boarding or walking or whatever, the website that she used to because I've seen her with 2 dogs. And at times, those same 2 dogs outside in their backyard, on the back porch, barking obsessively. I mean, a lot.
Okay. One other question. This looks like it's, the location's right along Griswold Road.
Yes.
My recollection is, in observations, been that Griswold Road is pretty heavily trafficked. That there's quite a lot of traffic on that. So there's street noise from that as well in that neighborhood.
Yes.
So there's already essentially industrial noise besides the noise from the animals.
I wouldn't say industrial, because I'm there all day long, and there's traffic back and forth, but I wouldn't say it's so high that it's a hindrance to have some of the cars going back and forth. So I wouldn't agree with that part, that it's industrious. I would say it's more of, it is a cutway that most people use to get to Maple Ave, but I don't feel like it's obsessive.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your
Thank you.
answers to my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask a
Yep,
question?
Dave, sorry,
Yeah.
one more.
It's just a general question, this is a hard one, but with the dogs outside, you and neighbors you feel uncomfortable going to the backyard while the dogs are out there?
Yes, absolutely. And when their dogs are out there, I actually bring my dog back inside, because then my dog wants to run over and find out what's going on, because they are barking so loud and all the time.
But put the barking aside, though.
Okay.
Do your kids feel uncomfortable playing in the backyard, or is it not that, you feel safe enough, though, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say, I watch my kids, so if I see something, they're back there, but I'm right there with them. So I'm not just letting them go out. So if one of the dogs do escape or something, at least I'm right there, and hopefully I can help to save one of my children, make sure they don't get bitten or anything.
I know it's a tough question, thank you.
Thanks.
I think, not a question, but my comment. I think I walked our dog up in that area. I think it borders on soccer field. That's probably the one that concern. I said I was just pointing out to the other commissioners when I've walked my dog up there. It just borders on the soccer fields, which is probably a bigger concern even than, obviously neighbors are concerned, but.
Okay, continuing with the public comment, who would like to come up next? Please state your name or names for the record and your address.
Terry and Phil Ferragudo, we are the ones that sent the letter. We live directly next door. We were the ones who ultimately ended up going to the town because of the grass and the dog droppings, and they had sent us to the health department. And the health department had gone to see it, and they got back to me and said that they couldn't see anything because the grass was too tall. So they sent it back to the town, and Charlie Morrison got back to me and said that they had spoken to them. And at that point, the grass, which was as tall as their fence, was finally cut. They have cleaned it up. They have maintained that, but as T said, the barking is all times of the day, and when the dogs are out, even if they're out for an hour, we also work from home. We've had to close up the house, because if they're out and anyone is in the fields, like Paul said, the soccer fields are right there, all the dogs are barking, and I'm sure they feed off of each other, but it makes it really hard. You know, in springtime, we open up the windows, we've had to close up the house, because it's just intrusive on our working from home.
How far from your windows of your house is it to the enclosure where the dogs are outside?
The width of our driveway.
Okay, and have you experienced barking dogs and noise in situations where it's been third-party, boarding
Yes.
dogs and not just
Yes.
their own dog?
Yep, 2 or 3 dogs in addition to their own, yes. And like I said, I think the dogs feed off of each other, which I understand, but nothing is done about it, and it is a busy walkway into the park, especially with the soccer games or whatever else is going on. So it does go on for long periods of time.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have questions?
My name is Phil, Terry's husband. I do have photos of the fence. I think there was question on the fence, but I do think it's 4 feet. I could show if you want me to come around. Does anybody want to see the fence?
I'll clarify right now. It is 4 feet. I misspoke earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I also have, in the photo, is that the grass was extremely high. Greg did clean it all up, but it is very high, and you could see by I used to have dogs, so I know by the color of the grass when the droppings are picked up or not picked up by the color of the grass. So, but they have cleaned up since we complained. But I will attest to Terry and to Tia, the noise is crazy.
And-
It's just too much.
And again, could you just address again sort of the times of day when you experience the noise? And again, I'm focusing not on their dog by itself, but when
Right,
they've got other
The dogs
dogs.
that they're boarding.
It's been 6, 7 a.m. I've heard the dogs.
And how late at night?
10:30.
10:30, yeah.
Okay.
And it's not, it is what it is.
Okay. And thank you. Unless there's any other questions, thank you. We'll go to the next person who'd like to speak.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Morello, and I'm from 122 Griswold Road. I'm here tonight to voice my concern against the special permit for doggy daycare in a residential neighborhood. My main concern is the noise and the traffic that a doggy daycare would bring to a residential area. Between the noise that several dogs would bring, as well as the hours of operation of picking up and dropping off, I fear that the presence of a business in the area would not only diminish property value, but also increase traffic in an area that is highly used by children who have soccer, baseball, softball games in the fields of Millwoods Park. I know Ms. Rizzo-Flower mentioned that the dogs would not be allowed to be outside unsupervised after 9:30, but as a high school math teacher, I have to be in bed by 9 p.m. in order to get 8 hours of sleep, and there have been instances where I've had to close my windows because the barking has been so bad that I wouldn't be able to sleep. I've never complained, but I fear if I don't speak up tonight, then this may persist or get worse with more than one dog. While I think another doggy daycare in Wethersfield would be a great addition to our town in an appropriately zoned area, in an effort to keep Griswold as peaceful and residential as possible, I ask that you consider voting against this special permit. Thank you for your time.
About how far away are you from their house?
They probably know better than I do. I'm, maybe 25 feet. I don't know how far away I am. You guys probably know. I'm right next door to them. Oh, yeah, so you know where the walkway is, Paul. I'm on the other side of the walkway, so I don't know, maybe 50 feet?
Okay.
25? I don't know. I'm
Okay.
bad with measuring. I was afraid you were going to ask me that, and I was like, I don't know. I hope they don't ask me that, and then you asked me that.
All right, no, that's fine. Thank you. Is there someone else who'd like to speak, sir? If you're all set, or is there anything
I
else?
have a quick question.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Sorry.
Yeah, so on the diagram, it shows, and I've walked the path, it shows actually that the path not only goes between your two houses, but then wraps around the back of their
Yeah.
house.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So the path is on two sides of their house.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, James Pettit from 88 Griswold Road. And first of all, thank you for my neighbors, and thank you to each of you for being a volunteer on the board. It's an important position in the town, deciding sometimes the future of areas of the town. And this is one of those areas. I think Mr. Drake, and I don't mean to sound sarcastic in my voice, whatever tenor, but I think you hit it right on the head. You wouldn't want to live next to it. I ask each of you, if, I believe that's what you said, or you wouldn't want it next to you, or something to that effect. I would ask each of you to think of that as you make this motion and to vote. Would you want to live next to this? It's not just a noise. During the winter, I had gone through living there, trying to be a responsible neighbor, responsible citizen, that there's a fire hydrant right in front of their house, As a responsible citizen, it's a good idea to clean out in front of it. They didn't do it. I went down 4 houses down. Yes, I did. I went down with my snow blower, 4 houses down, and cleaned all around that area. And I even went down when the grass was high and cut it with my lawn tractor. And the next day, they finally went down and cut the grass. I don't know if that sounds to me like an irresponsible business owner to me. And that's just not what we need in this neighborhood. I'm not asking them to leave. I'm asking you not to approve this petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have my letter in your packet. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir. Please come up.
Good evening. I'm Peter Gardo, 60 Griswold Road. This request is inappropriate for the neighborhood, and I hope that you listen to the other neighbors that are closer than I am and don't allow this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on this? Anyone else in the audience? Last chance. Anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak? Okay. Going to give the applicant an opportunity to come back up, and you can address anything that you'd like to that's been discussed. Okay.
Greg Flower, 106 Griswold Road. Thanks to our neighbors for their concerns. I appreciate you coming out tonight. We were a bit ignorant to the fact that we needed a license for this because we run a very small-scale operation. I'm sorry, I missed your name. Can you remind me? It's nice to meet you, Tanitra. The concern about traffic, to me, is a moot point. We have, clients coming like once every 2 or 3 days. So the level of traffic increase, I don't see that as an issue. The 4-foot fence, I apologize for misspeaking earlier. My anecdote about the dog that we have is still true, though, because the other property we were at was the same height fence. We are very careful in our pre-boarding process and do not accept dogs that we feel are dangerous or a flight risk or any sort of risk of getting out of the yard. To address the grass, I know all of you must be nice neighbors if you volunteer to be on this board. We have 2 lawnmowers, one of which was broken for about a year as my push mower. I have a riding mower too that was working just fine. It broke down at the beginning of May. I spent about 2 weeks. I tried replacing the spark plug. I did an oil change. I tested the battery. None of it worked, so we sent it out to a shop in Glastonbury, and they took about 2 weeks to get back to us. So we didn't mow the lawn. The front lawn, I think I mowed at the beginning of May, so the front lawn was probably a month without mowing. The back lawn we hadn't mowed to that point, so the back lawn was about 4 feet high. As soon as we did get the lawnmowers back, I immediately mowed both lawns, and they have been in good shape since that point. Trying to think of, our dog does bark sometimes, but that is the dog that we leave unattended outside, as is our right to do. We have a fenced-in yard. We know he's not going to escape. But the insinuation that it's all the time, I think, is false. I bring him on a walk at the park every day. Jill brings him around the block every day. We only really let him out 3-4 times a day, and not for long spurts, especially in the summer, because he doesn't like heat. So, does he bark? Is he loud? Yes. But is it a constant, all-day thing to the point where I think where they are claiming he is a nuisance? I would vehemently disagree with that. And I think that that's an exaggeration. Jill, do you have those pictures of the dogs that we've boarded since the beginning of the year? I'd just like you to take a look, because these are not vicious, dangerous dogs. I think you will see. Not dogs that are going to jump a 4-foot fence. Not dogs that are going to attack your neighbors. And these are the only 4 dogs that we've boarded since the beginning of January. So it's not like we're having a cycling of 30 different dogs coming through. It's been 4 since the beginning of January. Oliver, Robin, Benny, and Guinness, who we had for like a day. It's not a situation where we're bringing in big, dangerous, scary dogs. Furthermore, in the town, we're allowed to own, I believe, up to 4 dogs without any regulation. So the fact that we board 1 at a time usually, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but occasionally more than 1. If we were to just go out tomorrow and get 3 more pet dogs, there's nothing that could be said or done about that. I really don't think what we're doing is a large-scale operation that will be disruptive to the neighborhood. It's a small-scale thing. If the noise has been bothering the neighbors, we can certainly be more conscious about that. But I believe that addresses most of the concerns.
Any questions, commission members?
I was just wondering, so being new, assuming that at this point it's already been determined that a special permit is required,
And it sounds like it's because of the aspect of the use that involves people coming to the home.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my question, is like the home occupation, use of the property. Okay. So it doesn't actually have to do with the number of dogs or anything. Okay. So would you be able, have you investigated other things like additional fencing or privacy or sound?
We have not. Our fence is about a year old, so we haven't put in any time into that.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Well, the applicant is still up. Okay. And you have anything further, or are you all set?
I think, unless you have something more to say.
It's been sort of negative. So I just want to say that I think there is only one kennel in Wethersfield, so this is a needed service. And like our dog would not do well in a setting like that, and he's not the only one. So I think having a place where, pets can be receiving nurturing care, is needed in Wethersfield. And yeah, I just want to reiterate that we are not planning to expand, and we were not trying to be underhanded in doing things without the permit. We, paid taxes on the earnings and have pet sitter insurance and all that. We just didn't know. If you ever consider something like a probationary permit to see if I'm, addressing the concerns correctly, I would be open to that. I don't know if that's a thing, but just wanted to mention it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go up again?
Something you, sure, well, since you're the only one, we'll allow you to do
How many times do I
that.
get? Again, I want to reiterate that I'm a licensed real estate broker for over 40 years, and the first thing that prospective buyer would say is, what's around the neighborhood? Oh, a doggy daycare. Even if it's going to sound disrespectful, but even if it was Chihuahuas, the title, doggy daycare, is just going to send the values of the property down. And that's just not what the town invests in the Mill Ponds area, and that's just not the right direction to go in a residential area. And you heard from adjacent neighbors, it's just inappropriate. And I hope you take the appropriate action by voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give the applicant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. That's one more trip, last one, I think. And just as a final note, on the fire extinguisher, fire hydrant in front of the house, the grass is still there. It has not been trimmed around it. It's just not appropriate. And if that's how responsible owners they are, that's not appropriate as well. Yes, they've cut the grass in front. Yes, they've cut the grass in back, and that's great. But they also have a responsibility to the area around it, and they haven't fulfilled that.
Thank you. The applicant, you can have an opportunity if there's anything further you'd like to say, since there's been some additional comment. So it's up to you, but just want to give you the opportunity.
We'll decline.
Okay. All right, so I guess the first order of business is deciding whether we are ready to close the hearing or
I'll
not.
move to close the hearing.
Is there a second? Second by Chris. All in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. And now we can move on to deliberations, discussion, a motion.
So from my perspective, as I listen to this, there's a lot of pieces to it. If you take out the lawn issue, the personal dog, a lot of that, it's really a question of, is this a suitable location for operating a dog boarding business, right? And that's really the root cause here. And I think root thing that we're hearing. Three things I was thinking about: neighborhood support or opposition. I mean, there's a support letter, but it's from West Hartford. A lot of good testimonials, which is good. But listening to the negative neighbor support or negative neighbor feedback, potential safety issues. I mean, just because some of the dogs have been small and behaved in the past, you never know what you're going to get in the future. And then the overall location with the proximity to the park, I'm not seeing it as a positive support for that answer, for that question.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Tom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, usually when I think our required procedure is that before we can actually discuss the issue, there needs to be a motion on the floor to be discussed. Our comments before such a motion are kind of largely irrelevant and not actually appropriate in terms of timing. So,
Tom, I would...
So perhaps we can start off by having a motion.
A motion is fine, but I would respectfully disagree. I think we have the prerogative if we want to start a general discussion. I think we have the leeway to do it either way. I agree with you that more typically we start with a motion, and if somebody would like to make one, that's fine.
Well, just for the sake of discussion, I'll just make the motion to approve application 2187-24Z, Jill Rizzo-Flower seeking special permit in accordance with section 352, home occupation of Wethersfield Zoning Regulations for home occupation of a doggy daycare at 106 Griswold Road. Having made the motion, I'll simply say that I really can't support the motion I made for the reason that in the time that I've sat on this commission.
We probably should have a second
I'm
to the
sorry.
motion, and also a question for you. Are there any conditions or stipulations, or it's just, at this point, a motion to approve?
No
Okay,
conditions.
is there a second?
I'll second
For discussion
purposes of
purposes.
discussion.
Tom seconds it, please continue.
Sorry. What I was going to say was that in the time that I've been on this commission, we've reviewed a lot of home occupations, and they come in all shapes and flavors. I mean, we've approved some and we have disapproved others. What I can recall from what we've reviewed over the many years is that when we look at a home occupation, it's usually well-contained. We're comfortable that it's not going to be disruptive to the neighborhood. We're comfortable that it's low intensity, and that you really don't have to put a lot of conditions on it. It's usually a single proprietor doing something in the basement or in the garage or something like that. What I have concerns with this particular one is that it's not easy to control dogs. I know. I've had dogs that have been very difficult to control, no matter how hard I try to train them. So even putting a condition that you have to control the barking, which is a big concern to the neighbors, is I believe, almost impossible to to get a positive outcome on something like that. So for the reason that I think that this is very hard to contain, not sure what could happen with bigger dogs that may come down, and the fact that it is a public walkway. I understand they have a very large fence on one part of the walkway, but the backside, which is also a walkway, is an open fence, and it doesn't seem that tall. So those dogs are going to be subject to the stress almost of having a lot of people walk by them, and it's not fair to the dogs as well. So those are my primary reasons for voting against this.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the motion?
Wait.
David?
I'll be honest, I'm against this also, but should we think of a consideration maybe, first of all, the fence is no good. 4-foot fence ain't cutting it. And the 6-foot fence in my mind is cut, and I'm not, obviously you guys are dog lovers, there's no question about it, and I respect that. I know we had a tragedy in my household Christmas time with our dog, and my wife has never recovered so far from our dog. I'm just saying, maybe could we accept cranking it down to 2 dogs maximum with a fence? I don't know. I'm not against it, but I kind of am against it. I just don't think it's the right thing. And I know it probably breaks your heart to say it, but I just don't think it's appropriate here. Especially if you weren't at the park, I may be more open to it, and maybe just a couple dogs and an 8-foot fence, and we put limits on the dog sizes, which it looks like your dogs are nice little dogs. But like I say, based on my family's history, I'm kind of against it, I'll be honest with you, so.
Any other, Tracy?
And I do want to point out that, I mean, we keep calling it a doggy daycare, but it really is a boarding facility that they're proposing. People aren't picking up their dogs at the end of the workday, before dinner or something. This is, overnight is what they're proposing. And I don't know if we can put restrictions on saying you can only have, 26% capacity or anything. I think if we approve it, it's full tilt.
Tom?
Mr. Chairman, when I initially reviewed this, my knee-jerk reaction has been on such things as, it's their property, it's a way of supplementing their income. We want to foster economic activity in the town, not deny people the opportunity to maximize their resources. But when we look at this particular occupation, it does, I think, clearly fall within the regulations with regards to the special permit requirements relating to, health, safety, conservation of living standards in the neighborhood, those kinds of issues. And I also recall the turmoil that this commission endured with the boarding and dog walking area on Beaver Road over several years ago, and how controversial and disruptive that operation was. And normally when we are looking at home occupations, it is occupations where people are coming into a house, like for someone that's an accountant, or he receives clients within a home office kind of environment. And normally our main concerns is whether or not that contributes to traffic, additional traffic that's unwarranted. In this, we've got more considerations than just that to consider. And while my initial reaction to the application was more positive than I've come to realize at this point, this, I think, clearly falls within a questionable activity that's not necessarily in the best interests of the surrounding community to where this would take place. And I think I'm like many, or the majority that I sense on the commission, that I'm highly dubious that this is really compatible to the best interest and the welfare of the neighborhood.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else like to say anything? Chris?
Yeah, I just, I think I agree. Growing up with small businesses too, I would hate to deny somebody that opportunity. But, the houses in that neighborhood are very close. Like, looking at the satellite that I can see on Google Maps and not having an actual plan, the houses are very close. And then additionally, not having higher fencing in the back with a big open field there, you can just imagine how sound travels quite a bit across a big open field. There's also, games and sports happening in that field on a regular basis, but it sounds like it doesn't fit in with what's going on in the neighborhood. I would consider revisiting it if there were potentially additional, maybe more of a plan for how things like sound would be managed, or how things like even just the overall percentage of the property. I think the home occupation is at more than 25% use, and just having a whole backyard, right, where dogs run around, it's a large proportion of the property. And so just thinking about those things, it doesn't seem, I also would agree that it doesn't seem like it fits.
I guess I would just add, I think the special permit standards are looking at a variety of potential impacts on the neighbors, specifically in the area. And I think, Tracy, you had interesting suggestion, but I think at the end of the day, it's from an enforcement standpoint, it would really be kind of unwieldy to try to manage to that degree. And I think that, we have heard testimony from neighbors in terms of already experiencing impacts from what's out there as well as concerns. So I very much sympathize, with the applicant, and I think they're trying to do something that they think that they can reasonably do. But I just think I agree, it's a tough location overall, and it's tight and it's close. So that makes it difficult to me. So, anybody else? And if not, we can proceed to a vote on the motion. So, again, it's an affirmative motion that's been made by Peter. We'll ask for the ayes and the nays, and if the application fails to get 5 yes votes for approval, then is effectively denied with an affirmative motion on the table. So why don't we just, well, we can try the voice vote first. All in favor of the motion to approve the application, please say aye. Okay. All opposed, please indicate that you're opposed.
Nay.
Nay. Is there anybody abstaining? All right, so it appears 0 in favor, 9 opposed, and that the application is denied. So again, we're sorry for the result, but appreciate your coming to us and all the comments that have been made by everyone this evening. We have an 8-24 referral for those of you who are new members under the state statutes. If the town is going to sell or lease land or transfer land, then it requires a review, an advisory review by this commission. But if this commission issues a negative review to the town council, then it triggers the need for a super majority vote in order to approve. And I think, Fred, is that 6, a 2/3 vote that's required, or is it 7? I can't remember, but it's more than the usual 5 that would be required.
I think it's 2/3, but yeah.
2/3, okay. So are you able to explain
Sure.
this one for us?
Sure. The Department of Transportation is in the process of installing new computerized traffic signal system for the entire stretch of the Silas Deane. They're all going to be coordinated. It's supposed to be safety improvements and enhancements throughout the entire run. It's also going to include new stanchion arms for those signals and just overall upgrades as part of this. There's a 880 square foot plus or minus area that is just to the south of the entrance to the Silas Deane entrance to the Silas Deane Middle School property, that little curved entranceway. It's actually considered an extension of Beaver Road as well. But there's a portion just to the south of that for the purpose of installing that equipment. So they need to place the equipment there. So in order to do that, they need an easement from us to allow them. It's a traffic easement for the purpose of installing that equipment and maintaining it there. So they're just asking for your positive recommendation back to the council, and then this would be brought to the council in August. There's some time concern with this. They want to get this as soon as possible, and given that it has to come to you all and then to the council, and then they're hoping to get this through this process as soon as possible.
Is this an easement or a transfer?
It's actually called a traffic easement.
Okay, so it's not a transfer.
So exiting Beaver Road onto the Silas Deane Highway, it's the right corner at the light.
Correct.
So
And
again, the town's not giving this to the state, they're just gonna allow them to use it, so it's not a transfer.
It's essentially a full easement. They get full use of that.
Oh, I understand.
Yes.
Right, I just said, we'll still
Yep.
own it, we're just letting
Correct.
them use it until whatever.
but
This is a state project?
Yes.
but effectively, it's a permanent easement, and it will
Correct.
be devoted to that equipment for the state to support the signals.
Yes.
And I guess ultimately, is that signal improvement something that will be beneficial to the town as well in terms of traffic control?
Yes, we believe so.
Okay.
Who cuts the grass? Seriously.
I don't think there's going to be any grass.
Just
It's going to be all,
stone?
it's going to be a concrete pad with the equipment mounted on it.
No
We
grass.
get $2,100 in return.
Yes.
A month?
I was gonna say, it looks
No,
like a one-time.
Looks like
One
only
time.
$1,100.
There should be some time payments here.
Peter?
Fred, could you just help me better understand where this area is? So the entrance that the buses use to go to the middle school, right?
Yeah.
Which is on church property. Where is it in relation to that entrance?
So they actually have plans in here, part of this.
Yeah, I was looking at that, I just,
I couldn't figure it out, really.
Yeah, so,
The original ones were fine.
again, Silas Deane, running here.
yep,
That's that curved entrance at Beaver Road's right across the street.
yep.
Oh, okay, I was on the wrong
So this
side of
is,
the
Oh,
street.
so this is
So this-
Silas Deane Middle School is right
So it's
here.
north of the entrance I just mentioned,
Correct.
On the west side of the Silas Deane.
Correct.
Okay, okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
on the west side.
West side, yes.
Yeah, all right, I got it.
So how big is this thing gonna be?
880 square feet.
No, no, how big is the stuff they're putting on it?
Oh, the,
Gonna be big monstrosities?
no, so we actually made sure as part of this process, there was a review period that took place ahead of this, and we said, under no circumstance do we want to see anything like they did in Newington. Those huge, massive arms across the highway. These are actually going to be the much thinner versions, and they're going to be the more decorative black, which we have to pay extra for, but we want the decorative black instead of the metal colored, and we'll have to maintain the black as part of this process, but it's, no, they're
To
going
tell you
to
the
be.
truth, this just amazes me where they say they have no money for roads. And they spent money on doing that on the Silas Deane Highway, or Berlin Turnpike is amazing to me. What a total waste of money.
Yeah, that's-
So we're gonna do the same thing, so we'll have the same monstrosity.
No,
A
we will
little
not.
smaller though.
No, much smaller.
Much smaller.
Much more
Like-
traditional,
like
more
last
like you
year.
have down in Rocky Hill with the black and more.
When was the last time one of those fell down in town?
I'm not aware of any.
There you go, so I don't know why we're doing it, but okay. It's just- okay.
Telephone poles that got replaced.
That's right.
Just out of curiosity, if you say-
Fred, excuse me, when you were saying Newington, were you talking about in front of the McDonald's there?
Berlin Turnpike.
Berlin Turnpike
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
that
are,
is, that's huge.
yeah, those are not attractive. We do not
No,
want
no.
that. We have another project we're doing on the Silas Deane for a whole calming, and that'll be at some point coming to you all as we get to the further plans, but we're just starting that with Rocky Hill. So the idea is to make calmer intersections, bring them closer together, try to slow the traffic down, green it up as well. So this will complement that when it gets done.
So I think if everybody is so inclined to view this favorably, then it would simply require a motion to make a positive recommendation back to the town council on this item.
Just out of curiosity, if we said no, if the town said no, what would happen?
I think the DOT could probably take it by.
Right, so let's get our $2,100.
Could they from the town as well, Fred? I
Yeah,
think they could,
they
right?
could- they certainly
Okay,
could, yeah.
okay.
They don't want to do that.
Right. Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we provide a positive recommendation to allowing the easement for 880 square feet, I guess, to the DOT from town of Wethersfield.
It's, just double checking the
Yeah,
square
Mr.
footage.
Chairman, I think the area is not 80 square feet, but 800 square feet.
880
I
square
said
feet.
880, I said
Okay.
880.
Okay.
880.
All right, motion for a positive recommendation, is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Commissioner Deane, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed, any abstained? All right, that's approved. Next, I think, is, I don't know that we have anything under other business, Fred. If not, we can move on to the June 4th
Could I
minutes.
just ask a question?
Sure.
When can we expect replacements?
We have interviews starting this week. So we have interviews on Friday that are scheduled. I'd say very qualified applicants. We were actually very pleased to get some very qualified applicants very quickly. I think it helped that Justin reached out to the network and, explained that this is a great job to have, and he, recommends that people do it, and that he's not leaving for any negative reasons, so.
Okay,
Good.
good.
Minutes of June 4th, 2024. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, clarification. With respect to approval, disapproval of the minutes, by reviewing those that were here at the time, it looks like only 4 of us were present that is 4 of us that are in attendance tonight were present.
I think there
But
were.
it's my understanding that.
I think there were 6, Tom, including 2 alternates. Pete was here and Joe was here.
Okay, so we've got more than 4?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I was just also wondering whether or not the new members are allowed to vote on this. I think they are. It doesn't require that a voting for approval of the minutes, that person actually requires to be present at that prior meeting.
I think that's.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so everyone can vote on this.
But
Am
you
I
don't,
going to screw it up because I wasn't here if I abstain?
no, I think you're free to
You're
abstain.
allowed to
There's
vote, or
six-
you can abstain,
Okay,
whatever
so I'm not here,
your
I'm not gonna
conscience
vote.
Yeah,
dictates.
there's 6 of us who were there, so.
I saw it,
Yep.
screwed up, okay.
Okay, but you feel free, if you're new to the commission, for example, you are not comfortable, you may abstain, it's not an issue. So with that said, did someone make a
Move to
mo-
approve, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, so we've
Oh,
got
wait.
4 abstentions, Paul, Tracy, Dave Drake, I think you raised your hand, and Chris. So it carries 5-0, basically, and minutes are approved. All right, staff reports and pending applications to be heard. So there's one application that sounds like it was just very recently filed, possibly today.
Yes, today.
And I get, it's a special permit for an auto glass repair and replacement service for residential and commercial at 512 Silas Deane Highway. But I just wanted to bring up sort of the overall scheduling. So for July, and going back into ancient history, I think we typically reduced our meetings to once a month in July and August. We did that for this July, where we did not have an early first of the month meeting, but we had this one. So sitting here right now, Fred, I think this is the only thing we're
Yes.
aware of
Yes.
before us at all. What we don't know whether there's any time urgency on this being heard on August 6th versus August 20th, but I guess I'm going to put out there to everybody, if we have an option of taking one meeting off, and the choice is between the 6th and the 20th, you know, I mean, one way we could do it is, I suppose after this, you know, Fred could find out if there's urgency that they do it on the 6th, and if there is, you know, we could do it, but if there isn't urgency, we could, you know, either not have that meeting or not have the meeting on the 20th. Is there any preference in terms of which one we don't have, if we're not going to have one of them? Okay,
I'd prefer later.
to do or not do? Not do.
Do it on the 26th.
20th, I think it is,
20th,
right?
Or was it? I prefer we do it in the latter part of August if possible, if we're only going to have one.
Okay.
That's my preference, but I could live with either.
Either way, I mean, I think it comes down to whether there's a time pressure on this or not, and if there's not, you know, frankly, I guess if there's, I don't know, if there's not a time urgency and we did it on August 20th, any chance we'd have a planner up and running before then?
There's a chance.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, also, Mr. Chairman, it would also give the applicant time to respond to any comments that might be coming
Right,
from
because we're really
engineering.
not going to have any on August 6th, right? So
Right.
that's a good point. So why don't we plan tentatively maybe that we'll not have our August 6th meeting, and we'll hear this application on the 20th, and I guess if there's some emergency circumstance, but we're going to be handicapped anyway, just not having the full staff, so.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Okay.
Sure, I'm agreeable.
Plus, it's National Night Out, so
Which is the,
the police National Night Out.
Okay,
Over at the
okay.
community center in the
Okay.
evening, so.
so have we, I think we've covered everything on tonight's agenda. I don't think we've left anything out unless you have anything, Fred.
There's the correspondence for invitation for the housing forum in your packet. So if anybody's interested in that, just reach out to Lynn and let her know.
American.
Yeah, with regards to that, from what I was reading, the time has already passed to be able to send someone or to appoint a delegation to attend that. I think they required by the 15th, and that's that in itself was an extended period. So we're past the 15th now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess somebody could call and
I
find
mean,
out
I
if
would,
it's still possible.
I'd be interested in attending it but if it's already closed.
We can reach out and ask the question if it's,
Okay.
if it's not too late.
Along the same issue of that, the Connecticut Public Television has released a recent documentary with regards to
Yeah.
zoning and how zoning in the state has promoted segregation and the like. It's a fairly important documentary. If you haven't seen it, I would urge members to find out when it would be broadcast again and watch it. Or if you are a member of CPTV and you have access to the app, that you can view it in that manner. But I think it's a useful documentary with regards to the impact of zoning on the huge housing issues that our society is being faced with.
So it sounds like if it's still open for registration, Tom would be interested. Anyone else?
I might, I'll just check the calendar.
Okay. So I guess is Lynn or someone in the zoning
Yeah.
office able to just send an email
Yeah,
if
I'll
it's
double
open?
check it.
Okay,
Yep.
that would be great. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I guess, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?